to our panel. In fact, we're going to pick up on that last question that we got from our audience about media buying, because that's actually, by the way, that's the heart of MediaPost. We have our core constituency, our media buyers and planners, and as we saw from the survey results at the top of the event today, that this last year has simply shuffled everybody's idea of media planning, not only the ability to plan long-term, but just the mix itself, as we start seeing e-commerce driving more and more of the retail experience, but also the ways in which a lot of other channels are changing and moving, both in their pricing and their availability. So I want to bring on our panel now to talk about the ways in which the media mix has been shuffled up for them, because they come from very different industries and come at this in very different ways. First, James Brohamer, who's the Omnichannel Marketing Director at Purple. James, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you, Steve?
All right. Elisa Giorgi, who's a digital marketing manager at Pandora, the jewelry providers. Where's Melissa? Is she here? Did she make it in? There you are. Hi, Melissa. I think you're mute. You may be muted.
Am I muted?
Nope, there you are. There you are. Gotcha.
Hello.
And we have Alyssa, you already waved, and Melissa Mewdell, who's the Director of Marketing at Bailey Nelson. Welcome to all of you. I want each of you just sort of tell us a little bit about, you represent three very different companies, and you're also at very different stages in your sort of mix of digital and online experiences. So let's start with you, James. Just give us a brief thumbnail of Purple, where you are, and what your retail footprint is.
Okay. Yeah, I'm with Purple, and you know, we're a native DTC mattress and bedding manufacturer. We've recently, we're going the opposite direction of most of the companies. Like right before COVID, we were opening retail showrooms. We have 9 retail showrooms open. We have approximately 20 more in the works. Timing's up in the air, obviously. And then we're in a large number of wholesale partners, you know, the majority of mattress firms, Ashley Furnitures. So my role is to support both those offline retail brick and mortar stores and also our DTC efforts.
Mm-hmm. Alyssa?
Sure. So I work at Pandora Jewelry, and we have almost 400 plus stores across North America, so US and Canada. And my responsibility is managing digital media and traditional television buys to support those stores, as well as our e-com channel. Pandora's been around for an extensive period of time. Primarily, honestly, we were really driven, like we focused all on stores, didn't have an e-com site or an opportunity to purchase online. But as of 2015, they took what they had, the brand e-com site, and really turned it into like an e-com purchasing site. So while we are very comfortable in the retail space, we are still, you know, new in theory to the digital e-com space.
And Melissa?
Yeah, so my name is Melissa Mewdell. I'm the Director of Marketing for Bailey Nelson. Bailey Nelson is an optical retailer that's actually based out of Australia, and it's been in Australia as a leading brand in optical over there for about 8-9 years. And we've just expanded into North America over the past 3 years. So I'm the Director of Marketing for Canada and the UK, and we have about 20 stores right now in Canada, and we're rapidly expanding and probably launching about 10 stores this year. We're still launching new stores, even throughout the pandemic. And I would say that because we're sort of in startup phase, we're, you know, like Alyssa, we're very much a retail bricks and mortar first, e-com second, but certainly COVID has escalated our need to reach customers in a different way and sell to them in a different way.
I want to, each of you, I want you to talk about what the major media pivot has been that you've had to make. And I want to start with Alyssa, because you probably, of the three of you, had the most radical pivot to make. You're a legacy brand, you had a long-standing retail presence with not much of an e-commerce presence. So tell us about, Alyssa, tell us about the pivot you had to make in terms of the media plan?
Sure. Yeah, so I mean, obviously, as everybody kind of did, when March hit in 2020, we were all pretty much like, oh, things need to change. Pandora, prior to 2020, we did have a full funnel media approach, but we very much invested a lot of our dollars in television. And we had to make some changes and some really quick optimizations to improve performance and our lower funnel tactics, and making sure that our e-com driving tactics were up and running and fully funded as quickly as we could be. As much as we had a presence in paid search and affiliate and lower funnel tactics and paid social, we didn't, I guess I would say, prioritize them over any of those, upper funnel buys. And so when the pandemic hit, we basically had to make some really swift changes in how our budget was set up and move our dollars to support those e-com channels. And we were able to do so really in great partnership with our agency, Kara, who was amazing in helping us make really quick, swift changes. And simply by doing so, we were able to double our ROAS online, make sure we had a full presence in our affiliate channels, and make sure that all of our paid search campaigns were, fully funded and running. I would probably say March and April were a bit challenging, but throughout the year, we learned a lot of different things that have made us truly successful in those channels. And it really was us having a further conversation about what we call internally at Pandora, flexible budgets around our paid search and affiliate channels. So if the demand is there and it's within certain KPIs and guidelines, how do we kind of keep our budgets open and running so we're capturing that demand? Because we saw that with the pandemic. We actually saw that our brand campaigns and paid search skyrocketed when we needed to find more funding to invest in them. And so we needed to kind of have that conversation with the agency to make sure that we were leaving our budgets a little bit more open-ended, to make sure we weren't leaving it on the table, because we couldn't guarantee that people would still go to the store. And then another thing that we really made sure that we did was tap into ad tech solutions. So we really wanted to make sure that, our campaigns, while we wanted people to buy online, we also wanted to know them to know about our product offerings or our solutions for omni-channel purchases. So buy online and pick up in store, curbside pickup. What were we doing to allow them to get their products in the way that they wanted, but not having to spend a ton of time in store? So we explored some of those ad tech solutions in order to make that happen and have the appropriate messaging and market.
Before we move on, I want to mention that the distance you guys came from March, April to now, just in terms of how you come at media planning, has changed radically, right? I mean, I think that you were a very top down, just in terms of top of the funnel down, and now you've actually flipped that script completely, right? Why don't you tell us about just, you have a different model of the way you're actually doing your media planning now.
For sure. I mean, we definitely take our budgets and look at, okay, what are our goals and our objectives? And we kind of start at the bottom and we say, well, how much money do we need down here to make sure we're capturing that demand? And then we look at the rest of our budget and we say, okay, well, how can we fuel the rest of the funnel to make sure, we don't want to think just short term. And that's the challenge really for us, is we could get, honestly, we could probably spend more money in our paid search campaigns and our affiliate campaigns and just think about that last click. But we're trying to walk the fine line of those immediate returns, and we're so happy we have them, versus how do we continue to bring in new customers? And so we really are starting at the bottom, and then we look at our goals and the objectives that we have to hit down there to hit our e-com sales. And then we take our dollars and we shift them up the funnel and say, okay, well, how can that help us support consideration and awareness for our future buyers?
Yeah, I was just impressed by that because it's such a whiplash of a change.
It was. And in all honesty, I came from more of a direct response background. So it helped when I joined Pandora, because I had that kind of training of okay, we have to hit these goals, and how are you going to plan to hit that? Whereas the historical mentality at Pandora had been more, like you said, upper funnel to lower funnel.
Now, Melissa, you were coming at this from a very different direction. If Pandora was driven down to the bottom of the funnel, you're in brand growth mode. So you were coming at this from a very different direction. So what was the main pivot that you made?
Well, and we're still transitioning, making changes because, in a startup phase with not very many stores, we didn't have the budget to be able to do large media buys like what Alyssa was talking about. We've been experimenting with TV and of course have a more baked funnel and media strategy in Australia. But in Canada, we were really focused on, our biggest out-of-home tactic was actually just having our stores in heavily trafficked, street front areas and in really promising malls here in Canada. And that was working well enough for us to get the growth we needed to drive when we were in startup phase. But our biggest problem right now is actually awareness. We're a big component of our business before for driving awareness is people actually seeing us on the street, seeing our beautiful stores, our competitive pricing in the windows. They're not seeing that anymore. So actually it's escalated our need to do TV and out-of-home tactics that we wouldn't have considered at this stage in our business and with our budget to date. But it's escalated that because we need to be reaching people where they are, which is at home. And there are some tactics that are outside of that bottom of funnel that Alyssa was talking about that are where we're able to get that raise the awareness. So TV being one of them, online radio being another, direct mail, things that we weren't doing here, we're having to start to do.
You were also so obviously your physical presence was an important part, but you have also always been leaning on out of home. Why don't you tell us what happened there? Because as the survey that we had with everybody showed that a lot of people almost understandably were pulling out of home, but not necessarily, but you didn't as much.
Well, to be clear, out of home, like things like TV, things like radio, they were things that we weren't considering to be part of our marketing mix in Canada and in North America this year before COVID hit. And then it became very clear that what we really had was an awareness issue. And those are the best tactics for raising awareness. And, not all out of home, right? It's labeled as it is. Not all are appropriate in COVID, but there are some that are going to be reaching people where they are. And of course, right now, these channels are on sale, right? Which makes it a little bit easier to get involved if you don't have the big budget. And it's not that people aren't going to be exposed to them. It's just less people than usual. So if you can participate at a lower cost, and you have a big awareness issue, it's worth giving it a try. So that's our biggest channel switch, is that it's actually escalated our need to do that because we need to be driving brand awareness. People don't know who we are, so we have to fix that.
Let's move on. James, hi, let's bring you in. Tell us about the pivots that you had to make.
So yeah, some of the pivots we had to make, we started off running the opposite direction that Pandora was running, and that we were so good at DTC, and then we've been expanding our TV and our out of home and streaming radio. But one of the things that COVID really hit home for us was in our affiliate channel. So we found that even more than prior, our content providers, our review sites, the comparison sites, were driving a lot more awareness and consideration. So we switched up our affiliate channel tactics to commission higher on those levels and to commission lower on the loyalty and coupon sites. Did a deep dive. We're doing deep dives into incrementality on those channels, given that we've also pushed a lot of upper funnel media and pushed into the mid funnel affiliate channel. Another thing that we've been leaning into heavily is direct mail. Like, we found that direct mail is really working for us really well, not only in acquisition, but also repeat customers. So we found that direct mail is a really good, efficient way for us to get in front of customers who aren't opening the email. They're still subscribers on the list, but we don't see a lot of activity. But if we drop them a direct mail piece, they seem to respond a little bit. They respond better.
I've heard, by the way, I've heard a lot of that over the last 6-9 months. And one theory that I've heard is that people actually are paying closer attention to their mail than they now that they're locked in. It's kind of one of the events of the day is news from outside is coming in their mail. But I've heard a number of marketers who've said that direct mail is working really well for them.
Yeah, something other than the Amazon package, right?
Now, I know that all of you in our initial conversation, a lot of you had good questions for each other about how you're executing. So I'm going to let you guys have at it, because I know that you were curious about one another and how you were doing some of these things.
Well, I actually have a question for James about the direct mail strategy that he's put into place. When you say that it's been working really well for you, what kinds of pieces have you been sending out? Have they been promotional, or are they more raising awareness of the brand and brochure style?
For the most part, they're promotional, simply because we're hitting our CRM list. When we do prospecting, which we're going to start doing more of, we've kind of waited for that awareness to increase just a little bit more nationally. When we do target, we know traditionally who our major DTC buyers are, both from a demographic and a geographic perspective. The big question for me is and one of my challenges is, what is the difference between the individuals entering and buying from a showroom versus the people buying online? I still don't have solid data, but there does seem to be a big enough difference between those groups that, as I keep an eye on it, I might have to adjust my strategy for an offline and online media plan.
Do you see that like the early learnings that you have are influenced by demo?
Not necessarily demo. Like when I say demo, it can be anything from age to income to life event.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of use it broadly. There's a small group of people here, so I can give this out and not feel too badly. One of the life events that I leaned into with reservations on the company, for whatever reason, are divorcees. I started targeting divorcees, and we've seen a really good return on the ad spend with that segment, both through CTV, streaming, audio, and in direct mail.
Interesting. When you talk about CTV and return on ad spend, like how are you measuring that?
Depending on the platform. So some of it we buy like through Trade Desk, and so we have better visibility into that. We have decent viewability and visibility into Hulu, unless we do like a special spot. Some of our other just programmatic video, it's hit and miss depending on who the partner is. We were fortunate enough to go into our upfronts with a Hulu upfront buy as well. And seeing where inventory is right now with Hulu was smart. I wish I had done the same for Pandora audio, because now I'm being squeezed out of that and having to go in and do guaranteed commitments. But yeah, the viewability, so some of that we do in-house just through like DV360. Mm-hmm. And then the majority of the buy though goes through our agency. So I have the agency helping me and internal analytics helping me on that. So I'm a little more confident in that those returns.
Yeah, we're exploring at Pandora. I mean, so we have our core audience that, has been tried and true to Pandora for a really long time. And, that's primarily our bracelet and charm buyers. And what we're trying to do is kind of work our way into a younger generation and bring them into the brand. And so one of the things that we're definitely exploring is how do we diversify our TV buys to capture that audience? And how do we do it efficiently? And so we have just recently, leading up to the holiday, we introduced a lot of online video into our campaigns and not just doing traditional, so that we could kind of meet the audiences where they are. And so it's still a work in progress for us to really understand the measurement aspect there. But it's just interesting to hear like how, we are buying Hulu, we're buying Roku, we're buying YouTube television. We're kind of just we have a very big mix right now to try and help drive that strategy. And we're trying to find partners that can help us really understand measurement there.
Yeah. So the first thing I would recommend is testing. Like first test it, because Hulu's different. Like different audience segments will respond differently, and sometimes unexpectedly. Sometimes just running up against the show works, like linear would, where you're just buying on a program, and sometimes it doesn't. So like just do some testing on the brand. We should probably talk offline a little bit like after the show, because like I'm about to jump into Twitch heavily in March, which
Yeah, we
is,
just tried that.
yeah. And so I've been testing it. I think I have the right ad units. I'm sponsoring an esports team. So like, because I mean, we have that demo from our core like days of DTC, and I'm trying to like re-energize that demographic without alienating our new HGTV crowd demo. So I'm hoping that if I go far enough off the mainstream linear TV platform, that I won't confuse messages between the two groups.
Yeah, we actually just explored Twitch for Valentine's Day as a male gifting audience, and trying to get that younger gifter. So it's in our organization, it's like something super exciting. Like a bunch of us tuned in because we weren't familiar with the platform, and it's definitely different and new. And we're still trying to understand measurement for a partner like that. But I would say the one thing that we're really good at doing at Pandora is kind of like being open to testing and learning. And I think, you know, obviously that's a nice luxury when you have the budgets to do it, because if you don't, you can't, it's harder to do those things. But there's a lot of excitement around just being open to being flexible and trying things that, you know, we're maybe not 100% sure if it's going to drive sales, but it might drive awareness and consideration for the brand.
Lisa, do you have any initial thoughts about how the campaign with Twitch went?
So it literally just happened because it was Valentine's Day. Early insights, I mean, they were a pleasure to work with, which is obviously one huge thing. We did see an increase in site traffic from like our male gifters during that time period. We will have like a post-campaign brand analysis, but as you know, that can take a little bit longer. I have to say, I think, you know, we need to further connect with Twitch and better understand all of the offerings they have, because it's from my perspective, I just thought it was gaming, and apparently there is the whole gamut. So I think we have a lot to learn there. But I will be happily share when we do get like that brand analysis. But from an initial perspective, it did increase our mail site traffic during that day, that we did like a, you know, I guess they're not called influencers, but one of the gamers talked about us. I don't really know, like their version of an influencer spoke about us, and then we did a full campaign. So we met their campaign benchmarks, but we're not really sure how it contributed to sales quite yet.
Are they measuring the brand, or did you hire a third party to measure brand?
So I believe we're doing it through Kantar.
Okay.
I wanted to ask all of you about flexibility, because everybody talks about how they learned they had to be flexible in the last year, but it's hard to nail down everybody about how you bake in flexibility, how you institutionalize it so that it actually works. Alyssa, I think that you alluded to it a bit in the beginning in some of the ways that you guys are doing it, in the ways that you're reserving budget. I'd really like to hear all of you talk about how you actually make flexibility baked in, a part of the process now, so that you can be more fleet. What you've learned about doing that. Anybody?
Did we lose Alyssa?
No, I'm here. I didn't know if you wanted
here.
me to start. I'm happy to, but
Yeah.
So basically, I mean, what we have learned is really in our planning process, actually kind of presenting what we're considering like our incremental budget or opportunity, and making sure that that's commuted from the forefront of the quarter and campaign. And we don't necessarily have that money like reserved on the side or anything, but what that prepares us to do is have that conversation if the demand and need arises. And then we're constantly in communication on like a monthly and a weekly basis on how we're performing to demand. Sorry. Can you just put that away later? Sorry, my husband just came in with the groceries.
He popped some champagne. It sounded like he popped some champagne.
So we, like every week we meet with the agency, our paid search team, we've given them what we call a little bit of flexibility. So like if they think they need to go like 25% above budget, we kind of give them that within a certain ROAS KPI, because we don't want to leave that brand demand on the table, knowing that it's going to drive strong e-com revenue. So I think in summary, it's like be prepared to, have that offering at the beginning of whether it's the quarter or monthly planning that you do. And then additionally, set thresholds that you're comfortable with. So that way you can give the agency a little bit of flex. It's really challenging if they have to reach out every single time they want to spend a little bit above budget, because it doesn't give them, any ability to really move in real time.
And I want to move to the rest of you, but remind everybody to use the chat window. I'm already seeing a lot of activity here. We've got a bunch of questions for you guys, but let's go around the horn. Melissa, then James.
Well, in terms of flexibility, so first of all, answering Marissa's questions, yes, we're considering digital screens, and that's in fact kind of going to be a key component of our work with any out of home that we do over the next little bit. What I've observed in our business, because we're very affected in Canada by rolling lockdowns, and I'm also managing a team in the UK that's completely locked down, and it's happening on a dime. So what we have to do is be set up to make sure that we can, even just to be honest, for us, it's come down to basic creative, being able to have a concept that we can change the words around quickly and not have to go back to the design team to get something remade, setting up our local campaigns to be so that we can control the budget and messaging by city or even parts of a city by zip targeting or postal code targeting, so that we can serve relevant messaging to people depending on the situation that they're in. Our business is heavily reliant on people going into store despite the pandemic, because a leading indicator of people needing to buy glasses, of course, is getting an eye exam. When you have to do that, you can't really do that remotely. So where we can do testing, we're trying to drive those people into store. Where we can't do testing, we're trying to capture folks who are in the market for glasses and trying to get them to purchase online. And so for us, flexibility has really come down to flexible creative that we can change easily, in a campaign structure that allows us to serve different messaging to different markets very nimbly.
About you, James. Okay,
I'll go quickly because there's some good questions here. I think our biggest challenge has been any media with like pre-logs or prepayment. So a lot of the traditional media, the offline media, has been the biggest challenge for us, simply because traditionally that hasn't been a big play up until like the last year. And also it's harder to control. So like if I'm looking at podcast or something like that, it's difficult to flex a budget as much as, because like Elisa was saying, like we run off a ROAS based ad spend. So we have a set AOP budget, but we also run off ROAS based ad spends. And if we're within a certain limit of ROAS, then we increase or decrease spend accordingly. It's a lot easier to do on like paid social and some of the other channels. It's difficult to do on the traditional channels.
Let me bring Lisa, come on in, and because I'm seeing a lot of chatter over here. Let's get the audience involved.
I'm trying to keep up with it all. Yeah. So, well, first, why don't we do have Marissa who's ready to ask the question herself. Well, Marissa, why don't you go ahead?
Sure. Hi, guys. Melissa, thank you already for answering. I would love to hear from you, Elisa and James, how you think about reaching consumers when they're not in front of a screen or personal device, knowing, there's been a ton of research that's come out around screen fatigue during COVID. So I'm curious how you think of using channels to reach consumers while they're outside the home, no matter what that looks like today during COVID or in preparing for post-pandemic life.
Do you want to take it first, Melissa?
With screen fatigue, you mean?
Yeah, you kind of answered already around digital out of home and the screens, but if you have anything to add, yeah, that I'd love to hear.
Well, not in terms of our marketing strategy, but we have a whole product for screen fatigue. So blue light glasses. Hey, actually, I'm quite sorry. I have to leave the call now. I have another meeting. Is that okay, Steve?
Yeah, well, if you have to, you have to.
Okay. Apologies. Sorry, Marissa, but
we are going a little long, but I want to get our questions in.
Yes, of course. So, Marissa, I have nothing else to add from a channel strategy, but thanks for that.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Melissa.
Marissa, I mean, for Pandora, it's not something we're currently doing, but we will have, tactics that are more localized when it's not necessarily like COVID time periods. And so we will be, purchasing out of home probably again at some point in time. It's just something that hasn't been prioritized at this current moment. So yeah, I mean, in all honesty, like we do that stuff. And then additionally, like more things that are in front of your screen. And when we can't afford to always do television or online video, we're working with a lot of like publishers and direct partners to create custom content to get in front of our audience, which is another way that we're trying to reach them and still, get them excited about our brand, not just through television and online video.
Yeah, and Marissa, we're looking into programmatic digital. So we primarily right now, our tactic for out of home is retail localized showroom support. We've looked into a little bit of it, and it's one of those things that as the market opens, we're going to explore more. I like the idea of now the consumer is comfortable with QR codes of revisiting out of home with a QR code in the at least a street level ad that they can access and get more information. I think that it probably has a lot of potential given how comfortable people are now with COVID using QR codes.
Okay, well, we also have a question from Irene, and she's asking, what is your vision on strategy in a post-COVID world, and what has permanently changed in your approach?
I would say a lot has permanently changed. I mean, I feel like we learned so much so ecommerce. I think the way that we'll buy media will continue to be this way for some time now, at least. Really looking at, e-com as a huge driver for our business. It won't completely take away from, some of those awareness and consideration tactics that we have, but I think a bottom-up approach is definitely shown to our business how we can help support e-com sales and be complementary of our store. I mean, prior to COVID, 80% of our sales were in store and 20% online, and we've started to see a shift in that a little bit. It will probably go back a little bit, but we still will fund our lower funnel tactics heavily. And then I also think some of our awareness tactics and the way that we buy video in general, really diversifying our mix of TV and online video. And to James' point, like there's so much that can be done in that space that we haven't even like delved into from like a more specific audience perspective.
Yeah, I would say for us, I mean, our entire 2020 plan hinged on retail showrooms and wholesale partners. So I think we'll probably see a bigger shift to support that channel than we're currently supporting DTC. It's almost like within the next year or two going to be a complete paradigm shift for Purple as we do go into showrooms and retail wholesale partners. But overall, I don't think that I don't know. It just depends. I mean, it depends on that screen fatigue. I think consumers are more comfortable shopping online, at least the ones who were hesitant before. So it's difficult to say how much post-COVID is going to change that because it took a while for them to change. Now they're changed. How long is it going to take to go back to normal if they do, to go back to pre-COVID times? I don't know. But I still think overall streaming video is still going to stay strong. I think it's just COVID just kind of pushed it more to its maturity of where it would have been 2 or 3 years from now had it not been for COVID.
Well, I have to add though, if this is any indication for Alyssa, on Saturday, the day before Mother's Day, not Mother's Day, what was it, Valentine's Day, whatever, the mall, I walked an outdoor mall, cold as whatever, and there was a line going to Pandora. I thought there was like some big movie star in the mall, and it was all waiting to buy something. So people are okay with going in the store again.
They are, and I don't know about other retailers and the trends that they're seeing in their market, but what we've seen in Pandora is that while we have less foot traffic in the stores, the people that are going there are going with intent and they want to purchase products. And so we, in all honesty, haven't seen huge dips. Obviously in the beginning of COVID we did, but once things really started to open up in the United States, Canada is a different story because they've had a lot of fluctuation there. But they're buying, and they're buying at higher cart values, and it's because they're going there and they really want something. And I think there is definitely people are like, I just want to get out, and then they get there and they're gifting either themselves or somebody else. And so we've seen, while we don't have as many people in the store, the people that want to go there want to purchase product. So making sure that we make that happen for them. It's interesting because I think before COVID, a lot of people talked about you either purchased online or you purchased in store, and getting people to change their buyer behavior was hard. To your point, James, like people didn't have a choice when this all started. And so we have seen some transition of that, but I think a lot of our core buyers are still willing to kind of take that leap of faith and go into store.
Definitely.
Well, listen, Alyssa and James, thank you so much. Melissa out there, thank you for